It's Max with Crypto Talk now. Jasmy and Hyperledger. Is there something there? Or should we just dismiss these particular discussions about connecting the dots? And if that is the case, where we should dismiss it, then why don't we just hop on the bandwagon of, you know what? I want to give in to some of the FUD. Because if anything, when it comes to just that, giving into the FUD, that tells me that you just want to ape into a project. What is the definition of aping into a project? Well, by definition, it means just that, not doing your own research. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's Jasmy hot topic of Hyperledger. Is there something there, or is it all malarkey? Here we go. So with that said, look at this, and let's expand this. And I saw this discussion on crypto Twitter. Said to myself, you know what, this is worth looking into because it gets brought up quite a bit more than you think. So as you can see, shout out to this person, Cyan1K. He is an analytical thinker who does the Jasmy amongst other things. Close to 6,000 followers. Highly recommend you following him. And again, shout out to you, sir, if you happen to watch this video. He states in this particular topic, he just came across some interesting word choices, like, quote, data democracy. Add to the fact, IBM is related to Hyperledger. Now, of course, some of you guys may not know about Hyperledger, but if you're wondering, Hyperledger is the open global ecosystem for enterprise-grade blockchain technologies. And basically, all things interoperability. Now, here at CTN, as you know, we cover quant quite a bit. And if anything, quant's slogan might as well be interoperability. So when we get further into this, it states this whole thing with IBM is related to Hyperledger, which Jasmy blockchain was built beginning 2016, the very same time Jasmy blueprint began. He says check his previous retweets, so on and so forth, and we'll get into that. But first, before we do so, we have to outline some other things that we have here, right? So look at what it says right here. Jasmy AMA number 3, led by Hara, Jasmy CFO, seemingly leaving us a breadcrumb trail. Now, for people who are on the other side of the fence, who FUD Jasmy, they're going to use this as fuel. They're going to say this is just speculative, all that stuff. But my key takeaway is this. In reality, if you understand the accumulation phase for crypto, right? You can look more into this yourself. You have to understand that if everything was connected, do you really, really think that Jasmy would be at these rock bottom prices? No, they would not. With that said, and that could be applied to anything, right? Why would you want to jump in, like, let's face it, the rest of the world when they FOMO in? We want to get to the point where we have already accumulated the assets. Because when FOMO kicks in, that's where everything becomes absolutely beautiful, right? Like I mentioned, the classic meme of the guy at the ticket window. Maybe only 1 or 2 customers for rock bottom prices. But everybody's FOMOing in like a herd of cattle or a flock of sheep, right? When it comes to insane prices of $1, $10 or more, and so on. Anyway, let's jump back into this. It says, what is the likelihood that IBM is a strategic partnership which is being kept a mystery? The dates line up while Jasmy's use case continues to extend to so many business ventures. I believe he's spot on when it comes to this, but we need to have something a little bit more solid. Look at this. As we expand this, as you can see right here, and this comes, of course, from the original screenshot from IBM, Hyperledger Fabric and IBM blockchain platform. Hyperledger Fabric is an open source blockchain for business. Innovators in a wide range of industries, finance, banking, health, care. Think about that for a second. We covered the CARE project, IoT, Internet of Things, Jasmy, obviously. Supply chain, manufacturing, and technology are creating open, standardized, enterprise grade blockchain frameworks and code bases using Hyperledger Fabric to produce tangible business results. When we get further into some more of this on the next page, you see this straight from Hara. Thank you for your long term understanding of our project. And oh, by the way, what's mentioned here at the top? Timestamp March 21st, only a few days ago. So he states the plug network responded earlier but does not currently refer to any specific technology. We, as in Jasmy, are building our own blockchain utilizing, yeah, you read right, Hyperledger Fabric. Former CTO Yoshida is now involved as an advisor. I don't know about ASTO enough. Sorry about it. When you get to the next page, look what it states from 2015. You gotta keep in mind, this is like during the inception, if you will, or early days of Jasmy. So the Hyperledger Fabric is an open source permission blockchain framework started in 2015 by the Linux Foundation. Excuse me, I have some allergy problems today. So in order to properly assess all this, in my opinion, and I'm the type of person in which I do take deep dives, you gotta look more into it. So this is straight from Kaleido, and it gives you a breakdown. What exactly is Hyperledger Fabric? Right, this gets brought up, and of course, some people feel as though that there's cryptocurrency projects built on Hyperledger and so on, right? And if anything, that's not the case. The case is, as far as like an actual token, there's a difference between some of these things that are outlined here and just having a straight up like, cryptocurrency coin or token, right? And we're going to jump into what I mean by that here in a second. So it says, what is Hyperledger Fabric? Since launching in 2015, and again, add up the years here, connect the dots here, Hyperledger Fabric has been a top choice for enterprises looking to build apps on permission blockchain networks. The modular architecture is capable of powering large-scale applications that require enterprise-grade data security. Now, of course, we could just jump all over this, get into the whole thing, and this will be a really drawn-out video. And sometimes I do that, and you guys know that I do that. But as I've taught in college to my students, Control F is your best friend. So let's do Control F. We already did. Look how many times the word data is used here. Over here, data isolation and strict governance enabled by Hyperledger Fabric certificate authority. If you have true data democratization through the likes of Jasmy's data lockers, it would make sense to use this type of technology. On top of that, look what is you also mentioned here. The modular architecture is capable of powering large-scale applications that require enterprise-grade data security. Think again about what Jasmy is trying to accomplish here. Data democratization, literally data lockers. But the key thing consistently when it comes to understanding the main utility layer of Jasmy is just that. What they bring to the table of allowing, whether it's the people of Japan or maybe other places, as they expand Jasmy, the understanding of, look, this is your data. We respect your data. Think about their culture, an honor system. So if they respect people's data and they're giving the power back to the people, as in Japan, you have to have a firm understanding a little bit more about their culture. Also understand that it's a totally different culture compared to, sorry to say, here in the United States. While we're a country that's a collective group of many, many different cultures, the reality is the way we went about data and then the monetization of just that data is a night and day difference compared to the way the Japanese people go about it. Perfect example, look at Facebook. You signed up for a Facebook account. It appears to be free, but it did come with a cost. What was that cost? It was you giving up the rights of your data to Facebook, for they can basically make money off of that by doing targeted ads from your data that you literally handed over to them. With Jasmy, they're trying to give the power back. Now, some of you guys may, if you're new to Jasmy, you may not quite get this yet, and that's okay. We do quite a few different videos in regards to this. But here's the thing. Understand that everything had a start. It's like Bitcoin originally started many years ago. I believe the inception was 2009. Start to kind of take off 2010, really start taking off 2013, 2017, and so on, right? But the key thing was decentralization. You should look at Jasmy from that same perspective. As in what? The decentralization of your private data. That's what's key. So, as you can see, data is highlighted quite a few times. And of course, as we get further into this, there's this whole thing about trust models, right? Transaction life cycle, right? And we'll get into some of these other particular things. But look what it mentions about Fabric, right? Hyperledger Fabric. Fabric also supports private data collections, whereby private information is shared directly via peer-to-peer amongst the private participants. Only hashes of the private inputs are shared with the orders for inclusion on the on-chain transactions. Of course, your smart contracts, etc., etc. But the key thing is, even what you see here, supply chains. This transparency can be used to monitor real-time location data. And you may think, well, all you did is just do a Control F and highlighted data. You can apply it to anything. Is that really true, though? Because as we know, when it comes to Jasmy, we've had examples where they are using what? They're using driverless vehicles, for instance, or the mapping, if you will, of the local areas in Tokyo or in other places in Japan, similar to what Tesla is basically doing, right? And that is, what do they call autonomous vehicles, right? That's the key thing. Why is that so important? Well, think about it. They have a partnership, and of course, I'll get criticism for this, but we already, squashed the FUD on this. Go back to the FUD Buster special. Was it really Toyota as far as it being a partnership? Well, it was a subsidiary, but subsidiaries are part of the native or parent company. Another particular example would be with Sony with Kashi, right? So the key thing is here that I want to lay out for you guys is time, location, data, right? Limit fraud and counterfeit goods and track ESG efforts. We talked about some of this stuff on previous videos. Let's get into this. Digital assets. Whether it's, the tokenization of assets through, Quant and Overledger, or it's the tokenizations of assets for anything and everything with LCX. But the key thing is what? The key thing is those digital assets. Where are they stored? Look what it says here. You have complex multi-party business networks built on Fabric, can easily tokenize assets, transact instantly, share data. How about this? Just to pound it home just a little bit more, even though it's not highlighted here. In a previous video, not exactly the last one, but in regards to the CARE project, that medical connection, you better believe that when it comes to that, what was mentioned in that video was how can this benefit the medical industry, especially when it comes to medical insurance. Here's a perfect example. Moving insurance transactions to blockchain can eliminate fraud, automate claim processing, and digitize legacy systems. Hyperledger Fabric also allows stakeholders to automate know your customer, as in KYC, processes via smart contracts. Now, while this isn't a Hyperledger deep dive video, it is good to understand and educate yourself the significance when it comes to all this. We connect the dots quite often. Why do we do that? Because it gives us a firmer understanding of why that is so important when doing more of your own research to draw your own conclusion of, hey, I'm ready into the Jasmy, but there's been some flood and I need to have a little bit more, I guess you could say, buyer confidence in order to make that decision if I should DCA more. And while none of this is financial advice, we should do that and apply that to anything and everything when it comes to cryptocurrency. I would stand by that 110%. All right, let's jump a little bit more into this whole topic, just a tad bit more when it comes to Hyperledger. So as you can see right here, this is from Upgrad, and this was actually posted not super long ago. I mean, this was dating back to October 6, 2022. But look what it reads. Top 15 Hyperledger projects to drive blockchain adoption for 2023. And when we go further down, look what it says specifically in regards to top 15 Hyperledger projects. Again, pounding home the understanding of why this is significant. So due to the consortium approach, the Hyperledger project is essentially an umbrella framework under which all other Hyperledger projects operate. Kind of like when you followed us on Quant, a broader understanding would be kind of like how Quant's overledger basically is the operating system that allows 100 plus blockchains to be fully interoperable with each other. You could say it's kind of similar, but it's a different model. Currently, Hyperledger's project is collaborating with around 250 global institutions, including global leaders in finance, banking, and here you go, Internet of Things. As we know, Jasmy really stands out for Internet of Things, IoT. Big names such as, just like you saw that previous gentleman on the outline where we introduced, he mentions IBM. Literally mentions IBM here. But as you get further and further more into it, some other big names, Intel, Cisco, NZ Bank, JP Morgan, SAP, and Accenture are all involved in this project. Why is that? Because like you see right here, it says it aims to advance enterprise level blockchain implementation across industries. And that is also key to understanding and connecting the dots. Now, another thing I want to also point out before we kick it back to the Jasmy section, because we should get into that. With a collaborative approach and high quality code, did you know that Hyperledger has 15 projects under its head as of now, which are divided into Hyperledger frameworks and tools? And of course, you can take more of your own deep dive in regards to that. But the cool thing is, well, look at what it mentions on the first part of that outline. This is one of the most popular projects under Hyperledger projects. IBM in collaboration with other companies. Now, of course, it doesn't mention all those other specific companies. And of course, you know, we have Hedera, we have Quant, we have Casper, we have a few other ones. But the key thing is there something solid there in regards to Jasmy? And I think basically there is. Now, the significance in regards to all this, check this out. There's a little bit more. NowPayments. Now, why would we mention NowPayments? Well, as you can see on the right side, NowPayments is the easiest way to accept, for instance, Bitcoin and altcoin payments. Look what is officially mentioned. And we're going to verify it too, right? You know, especially when it comes to Jasmy, because everything has to be verified. You know, don't want to disappoint the fudders, right? Newest addition, you can now accept payments with Jasmy management for seamless business transactions. For instance, Jasmy. NowPayments accepts payments with Jasmy. So let's jump over to this. When was this published? This was published yesterday, March 30th. So if anything, like right now it's March 31st, right? Happy Friday to everybody. And when we go to their site, look at the NowPayments. Just like I mentioned, plain as day. But let's dive deeper into this. They accept Jasmy coin payments. NowPayments, if you're wondering, is a crypto payment gateway that lets you accept Jasmy coin payments and donations in an easy and convenient way. Try this Jasmy coin payment gateway now. Why would NowPayments want to get involved with the likes of Jasmy if it was a bunch of nonsense? That wouldn't make any sense to me. Would it make any sense to you? Accept anything, 100 plus cryptocurrencies supported. Let your customers pay with anything. Auto coin conversion. Explore many tools, API, plugins, invoices, donation tools, and customized solutions. Get your funds instantly, fast transactions, non-custodial. You are in control. Think about what's worded here. You are in control. So if they're all about you being in control with NowPayments, and you also understand that Jasmy has that whole thing with IoT, and you also understand what Hyperledger Fabric is all about, connect those three key things. NowPayments, Hyperledger, Jasmy, Internet of Things have one common denominator, if you want to state, and that is you're in control. Decentralization, giving power back to the people with what? Their data. Of course, Flutters will say, well, you know what? It didn't officially state that. Don't you know that if it did officially state that, you really think for a moment's notice that we would have these prices for Jasmy? I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, let's get further into this. Save fees on the cheapest on the crypto market. Start accepting Jasmy. And of course, you can click on verify for yourself. Just go right to the NowPayments site. So in closing, or I should say near closing, I also want to show you this. And this is going to be close to the icing on the cake. Because you know what? Sometimes you just got to do just that. You got to bring it. So Hara, right? He's a Jasmy CFO. In a speech by Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda, he defines Web3, as in Governor Kuroda, as, quote, decentralized and fair internet where users can control their own data. We already gave you the outline of controlling your own data. 3 key areas: NowPayments, Hyperledger Fabric, and of course, the Jasmy connection. Identify and destiny. Your data is your own assets that you should control. 100% would agree with that. This has always been the starting point of Jasmy's development. Now, when we get into this, this is interpreted, of course, from Japanese to English, so there might be a slight flaw, but they do a good job with Google Translate to bring it to you where we can understand it. So this was, of course, all translated from Japanese to, of course, English on this particular site. And it says, greeting, payment evolution, payment system for thin individuals. Well, God knows I'm not, a thin individual. Used to be many years ago. Got to work on that, right? But check this out. Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda. Might be mispronouncing that. Not trying to offend him or the Japanese people, that's for sure. Well, why do you do the funny voice anyway? That's another thing. All right, March 28th, 2023. Introduction. I am Kuroda, from the Bank of Japan. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at Fin/Sum 2023 today. Yeah, it's a real thing. So it states, the theme of this year's Fin/Sum is, quote, FinTech, the age of thin individuals. Fin seems to have various meanings, but here I would like to take it as progress or, quote, evolution, and talk about it. With the spread of the internet and smartphones, a variety of information is overflowing, and consumers who are, quote, thin individuals are taking various actions based on a lot of information. As a result, the needs of financial services are rapidly diversifying. Heck yeah, it is. Look what's going on in the world as we speak, especially when it comes to what you see in the world with banking and so on. So it goes on to mention, it is no longer possible to meet the needs of users by providing average services as before. And I couldn't agree more. Under such circumstances, financial services will continue to evolve and innovate, incorporating new technologies and business ideas. The field of payments, one of the financial services, is no exception. Since my first opportunity to speak at FinSum in September 2019, the private sector's efforts towards new payments have been remarkable. To me, this is bullish news in itself. Now, what is he referring to? Let's jump in a little bit more on this. Now, I understand that this particular area does seem like it's a lot of me reading it verbatim, but in reality, I do need to do this because you don't want to miss any of this. So he says, among these evolutions in payment, the first movement that I am paying attention to is the unbundling of services and functions that have been provided in an integrated manner. For example, it is not common for fintech companies to use the payment functions provided by banks through open APIs to create new customer services and convenient and comfortable user experiences. Overseas, there are many stable coins, listen to that for a second, that are distributed on permissionless blockchains can be regarded as unbundling that separates. Take a moment to pause on that, just in case you're not caught up on this. From our other previous research and content, there's significance in regards to that because we did get the announcements in previous videos, we covered it previous months, the unbanning of foreign stablecoins, like he mentions there. If you're wondering which ones those are, Tether's USDT, Circle's USDC. Why is that so significant? Because if you know this stuff, you come to an understanding that pairings are so important because that's how you pay for the particular asset. Perfect example, Jasmy/USDT pairing, Jasmy/USDC pairing. Once that is unbanned, you're going to allow an entire country to now have access once again to the digital asset. Perfect example, Jasmy. And by the way, did you know that when it comes to GDP, I believe Japan ranks second or third, we'll have to double check that, in GDP power ranking. Of course, the United States is first. So I believe, I think China would be number 2. Number 3 would probably be Japan. So they're right up there. So if we have a big power player like Japan coming in, that is extremely bullish news for Jasmy, no matter what the fudders want to state. If crappy meme tokens can pump for no reason, then a solid project, in my opinion, in Jasmy, with solid utility through Internet of Things data democratization, which is the main utility layer. Yes, main. They do have other layers of utility. Look at the NFT connections and so on, right? The whole thing with Sagan, Tosu. We did a video on that. We talked about them live. Again, there's more utility layers to Jasmy, but this is their main utility layer. So if some of those garbage tokens, and Jasmy, in my opinion, is not a garbage token, that those could pump for no reason all the more in a bull market for Jasmy. All right, look at what it says here. Regarding the word programmability, which is often heard these days, the function of making payments based on certain conditions is not provided by the entity responsible for the payment function as in the past, but by various entities, including its users, is noteworthy that it can be programmed. It can be programmed. Think about that for a moment. Now, it goes on to stating this, simplifying settlement mechanisms through liability conversion. We won't get into this too much, but one key area I do want to mention is, like what it says right here, if you think about carefully, many of the current mechanisms were created with the technological constraints of the past. That is true. Think about what's going on with ISO 222. The technological constraints was the MT messaging system. Look what we're at now with this whole thing taken off with ISO 222. Now, I know this is a Jasmy video, but that's a perfect example of the old system. And of course, Jasmy is not ISO 222, but the old system with that messaging standard for SWIFT, the MT messaging standard. A central bank getting hit with $60 billion worth of fees to move $10 trillion cross-border. And we saw an example from Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple with XRP that they were able to send $700 million, right? And the cost was only like a penny or slightly under, something like that. And by the way, it moved in 3 seconds. So yes, this statement does make sense because there were constraints of the past. There still is. You have to keep in mind that there's banks and systems, right? They're upgrading to the quantum financial system. That's another thing that we talk about here at CTN a lot, the quantum financial system. So they still have to usher in the new. They're still trying to, usher in the new by keeping the old, by keeping it, I guess you could say, where you still recognize, some of those old systems. But just like with anything, it takes about roughly 10 years to phase out the old. If I'm a bank, I am not going to, just keep using this dinosaur technology. Another perfect example, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, right? I don't care. Some people say, why are you doxing yourself? Well, anyway, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Big city for the most part. At one point, I think we were the 5th largest city in population. In the summer, it gets really, really hot here in Phoenix. So a lot of people's air conditioners goes out. Here's an example in regards to the point I'm trying to make. So look at it from this perspective. You really think that I'm going to, like, if my air conditioner went out, I buy a brand new state-of-the-art air conditioner and don't use the utility of it keeping my house cool and keeping me cool? As they say out back, forget about it, right? Exactly, forget about it. So my key thing is the same applies with this. Why wouldn't you recognize that you don't want to use the constraints of the past? You got to get in with the new. So attempts to utilize privately issued stablecoins and wholesale central bank digital currencies for interbank settlement, like it says, of cross-border remittances are also being received from payers while converting liabilities between multiple cross-border parties. It is thought that this is rooted in the awareness of the problem that efficiency can be greatly improved by simplifying the conventional correspondent banking mechanism that allows funds to reach people. That's what's important. That's how you understand the significance of now payments. Sometimes people see some of this stuff and they're like, big deal. We've seen that with other crypto projects. Whoop-de-doo. So it happened to Jasmy. It is a big deal. Anyway, let me get a little bit more into this. But that's the key thing. Like it also says, mechanism that allows funds to reach people. If it can't be, if people can't, or I should say, if the funds can't reach people, it's kind of like having the greatest utility in the world. If it's not being utilized or there's something wrong with it, then you're stuck in the mud. There's more about this in regards to the evolution of places where economic activities take place. I'm not going to get into that. Role of central bank money, and we know about most of that, but I will read this conclusion because this is good. It says, to conclude our time, I'd like to say a few words about the central bank digital currencies. In the future, it will be possible for central banks to cooperate with the private sector to provide, quote, money that anyone can use anytime, anywhere with peace of mind in digital form, while coexisting with other forms of money, just kind of like what I mentioned before. It has to coexist. Yes, there'll be a phase eventually, maybe in other countries, instead of 10 years, it takes 20 years. You never know how long it's really going to take. Some people say by 2030 it's all done. Could very well be the case. I'm not a fortune teller. But what it also goes on to mention, I believe that it must be achieved, that it will be realized. And it will be realized. There are many options for when and how much such money, but it is the central bank's responsibility to prepare in advance for any possible response. From the standpoint of firmly preparing for the future, the Bank of Japan, listen to this, technical verification 2 years ago on general purpose CbdCs that are intended to be used by a wide range of entities, including individuals and companies, decide to move to pilot experiment from this April. Under the newly established CbdC forum, we intend to make full use of the useful technologies. Think about this. Useful technologies and knowledge of private businesses, again, connecting the dots here, right? The fudders are going to say, oh, this is all speculative. Just hear me out. Operators involved in retail payments and related technologies. Think about it for a second. In order to connect the evolution of payment to the construction of a payment system for Shin individuals is essential to borrow the power of everyone. So we ask for your cooperation. Now, hear me out. Bank of Japan, technical verification. We go further down. Individuals and companies, pilot experiment from this April. Why would that be? Well, you got to get ready for the unbanning of these pairings, these stable coins by roughly June, July-ish, right? Could get delayed a little bit, but that's the consensus that we've gathered under the newly established CBDC. Some people say, why mention all this stuff with the CBDCs? Because here's the thing. If they're doing a pilot experiment and they need to, I'll highlight this again, excuse me, intend to make full use of the useful technologies and knowledge of private businesses. To me, this says if it's a CBDC, especially for Japan and these particular connections, and you saw, for instance, Hara highlighting this. Why is he highlighting this? He can't he can't violate an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, but he can give you little crumbs, is what's his name said, right? The key thing is, again, guys, connecting the dots. So a proper CBDC, and I get it, not a lot of us are fans of CBDCs. I mean, you feel like that's control. But is it when it comes to Japan? So here's the thing. Here in the United States, we see, for instance, and I don't want to get too off base here, but you see Jerome Powell. He'll mention, things that just seem like it's just like, contradicting to the statement, right? Like, that one particular one where he mentions, we're not going to use the CBDC, but we're ready to go at a moment's notice, not exact words, but basically like this, at a moment's notice for real-time instant payments. Now, that's the United States. In regards to Jerome Powell, we're talking about Japan. Now, here's the key thing, though. In Japan, again, back to the whole outline of the culture, the difference of the culture, if they're implementing CBDCs and they have this whole talk about pilot experiments and, giving power back to the people, like it says right here on the very bottom, just in case you missed it, right? Shin individuals, just again, understand there's a difference in the culture here. Shin individuals is essential to borrow the power of everyone, so we ask for your cooperation. So my thing is this. If they are really going to live by that, and I truly believe that's the case, I mean, their whole honor system is totally different from any other country, then they stand by that. And if they're going to stand by that, they're going to have, for instance, a company like Jasmy to help them get the job done with this Japanese CBDC. How? By privatizing the data and not making it where it's like how it is here in the United States, where it's all on social media and you're giving it away for free. You're respecting the Japanese citizens' private data. And how are they going to get that done? Well, there's not a whole bunch of projects that are in Japan, as we know. Hence why Jasmy is referred to as the Bitcoin of Japan, because it was the first. But at the same time, they have a unique business model and innovation of Jasmy's personal data, personal data lockers. That's one of the key things. Again, power to the people and recognizing that. So when he mentions some of these things, to me, again, it's all part of connecting the dots. It simply makes sense. I think it's a totally different situation that I want people to understand when it comes to CBDCs. Just because a CBDC here is like in the United States, it seems like doom and gloom, and I'm totally with you guys on it. Understand what is one of the key takeaways. The key takeaway is the culture, the location, and the way people look at data. I mean, come on. There you go. The way Japan goes about their data compared to us. I don't know about you. All that data I gave to Facebook, Google, and all these other companies, right? And I could have got paid for it, or I could have been in control about it. Sign me up. Anyway, in closing, that is it for today's deep dive video in regards to Jasmy. I know it was really in depth. Hopefully you guys who stuck around from beginning to end appreciate it. I'm really excited about Jasmy moving forward. And, when I see these dips on the prizes, um, my thing is this, I'm DCAing at least once a month into Jasmy. And my personal goal, I'm not saying that you got to make this your own personal goal. My next milestone is I want to get to 500K Jasmy. I have roughly about 200K, but that's not the key thing. The key thing is set your goals on how long you're looking to hold Jasmy. So for some people, maybe they only want to hold it to a penny, and then you don't need that, what they call generational wealth. You just want to make an extra, I don't know, 50 grand or something like that, right? In reality, that's not life-changing money, but it will help people. None of this, of course, is financial advice. These are just my own personal things, right? I'm never the type of guy who would say, hey, go out and spend 10 grand on this or 1 grand on that or anything like that. But the key thing is know what you have, know what you hold, know why you hold it. And if anything, don't let anybody talk you out of the research you've done. If you feel as though Jasmy or any project is a good, solid project, respect yourself first by, as the Japanese would say, by honoring yourself and honoring the research that you've done. That trumps any fudder's so-called research by 1,000-fold. So with that said, if you enjoy a live show, check us out every single day of the week, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for Crypto Talk Now. And any articles or any research that you want to share with the community, you can share it on Twitter, or you could be the type of guy in which maybe you don't like social media because they take your data, right? You could go over to ctnnetwork.net and you can share the information there on our public forum. On behalf of myself, Larry, and the rest of the Crypto Talk Now Network team, can't thank you enough for watching our content today on Jasmy. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification if you haven't done so already. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you on the next one.